the complete real estate transaction guide for real estate process. Hello, this is Ruby Singh with Jobs and Career Advice. Let's cover today, we've been covering actually real estate job series. So let's cover today the complete real estate transaction guide. Whether you are buying or selling a home, the real estate transaction process can seem overwhelming and confusing. Who are the people involved and what is each person's role in the real estate transaction process? What does a real estate transaction actually mean? Correct? A real estate professional, they will assist with questions and concerns along the way, but knowing who is involved and what to expect will alleviate many potential worries. Okay. So today, we will be covering today what is real estate transaction. Who are the parties involved in a real estate transaction? What are these parties' roles in a real estate transaction? How do real estate transactions work? What are the steps for closing a real estate transaction? What is required for a real estate transaction? How can a real estate transaction it can be simplified or ready to simply your process and delight your parties that are involved. So what is a real estate transaction, guys? A real estate transaction, it's a process that occurs when a seller offers their home for sale and a buyer agrees to purchase that property. There are many steps involved in buying a house, and the steps vary depending on type of transaction and state regulation. Before the closing can take place and before the title of the property transfer to the buyer, a multitude of activities and tasks must be completed on time. Real estate agents involved are primarily responsible for these kind of tasks. However, the buyer and seller must complete their task expeditiously. Okay. Let's talk who are the parties that are involved in a real estate transaction. The, people who play the role in successful closing of a real estate transaction are a real estate broker, real estate agent, seller, buyer, mortgage lender, home inspection, right? Home inspector, title company, or a lawyer, depend on your state, what you use. Okay. What are these parties' role in a real estate transaction? Because the real estate agent or a real estate broker, they work typically for either the seller or the buyer during the transaction. On occasion, the agent can work for both the buyer and the seller during the same transaction. Traditionally, the buyer and seller will each have their own agents to help them through the step associated with transferring real property. Okay. The seller formally agrees to list his home for sale with a real estate agent and authorizes the agent to market their home to attract buyers and negotiate satisfactory home sale. The buyer usually works with the real estate agent and can be asked to sign an exclusive agreement called a buyer-broker agreement, promising that they will work only with that agent. These agents help the buyer negotiate through buying a home and preparing the purchase offer when the buyer finds their perfect home, correct? Another party is involved in this transaction is very crucial to the transaction is mortgage lender. They assist the buyer with all the paperwork necessary to apply and be approved by a mortgage. It is best to visit the lender before looking at any homes with a real estate agent. The lender will pre-qualify the buyer for the amount of money he is financially qualified to borrow and supply the buyer with the pre-qualification letter. Okay. Home inspection companies also play the crucial role. They are essential when buying a home. The evaluation provide ensure the property is in good condition and up to the code required by the county or a state. Title company or lawyer, some states allow title companies to do all the paperwork and close the transaction for the buyer and seller. Some require an attorney to close the sale. One of the most critical functions of this group is to search the home's title and confirm there is a clear title available to transfer to the new buyer. They make sure the seller legally owns the property and can transfer the title. Okay. After this process, the title company will issue a title insurance policy confirming the clear title. The title company usually require 2 to 4 weeks to complete the title process and prepare all the closing documents. They also present at closing while the buyer and the seller sign all the necessary paperwork. Okay. How do real estate transaction work? The step of a real estate transaction, it differ depending on the customers involved. However, they all have a beginning, and if everything goes as planned, they have an end or closing, right? They list a home for a sale, search for the perfect property. The seller makes his property available for sale and the buyer search for his ideal property. The buyer should already have a pre-qualification letter from the lender stating how much money he can borrow to purchase his house, and his down payment should already be in the bank. Okay. Offers. Offers are that the buyer has his real estate agent. They prepare a sale agreement stating price, terms, timelines that he wishes to offer. The price the property is listed at called the listing price is not necessarily the buyer's price to pay for the home. Okay. Then comes a negotiation. This is usually the scariest part, guys, of the transaction process. The seller has the right to review the offer and then counter offer with the price and terms he would like to see. Will the buyer agree to a higher price or walk away? Will the seller accept a lower price or decide not to sell to the buyer? The seller can only negotiate with one buyer at a time, still offer most advantages to themselves, causing the other buyer to begin the search process again. The purchase price is the price agreed upon after negotiations. The final counter offers date is agreed to by both parties is called the effective date of the contract. Okay. The title company, okay, or the lawyer, they also play a crucial role in this transaction. The buyer or the seller can select the title company or obtain separate representation. The buyer pay an initial deposit, usually called earnest money deposit, and it gives it to the title company, who will hold it in their non-interest bearing escrow account until the home's closing. The person responsible for taking care of this money and having it available at closing is called the escrow officer at the title company, or the lawyer pertaining in your state, whichever you guys use. Another point I want to make is the appraisal inspections and repairs. So now begins the next step of the transaction with all its pitfalls and concerns. The mortgage company want to make sure the home appraiser for the price the buyer want to pay. So they will send a third party appraiser to a complete report on the price of the company of the home compared to other similar homes in that area. The home inspections are ordered and completed, and the list of repairs needed is given to the seller. Next is the negotiation between the listing and selling agents to determine how many discovered repairs and seller is willing to fix and how many the buyer is willing to repair himself. Okay. If the seller does not agree to complete the repairs or give a credit to the buyer on the closing cost, the, the offer can usually be resigned by the buyer, and the whole process starts all over again with the new buyer. Okay. Contingency removal. Let's talk on that, because there are many dates involved in the real estate process that must be strictly adhered to. Financing always has to be on time by which the buyer must secure funds and release the financing contingencies. Inspections have contingency dates that require everything to be negotiated by a specific date. Agreed upon repairs must be completed, and receipts given before the transaction can proceed to closing. Okay. Next part comes the closing. Okay. Closing, it's the title company or the lawyer's responsibility to prepare all the closing documents for buyer and the seller to sign or to transfer ownership of the property. A title search will be concluded to make sure the owner has the legal right to sell the property and there are no issue on the title that could hold up closing. The mortgage company will give what is called a clear to close that makes everyone breathe sigh of relief, because the buyer's mortgage is now finalized and the funds are in the place to transfer to the seller. It's necessary to have um, notary present to notarize the documents that the buyer and the seller are signing. Okay. Often closing are not done in the area the home is located. In this case, the title company sends the documents to the buyer, finding a notary in that area, and send the signing and notarized paperwork back to the title company. Closings not done in the same area are called mail away close. Okay. So what are the steps for closing a real estate transaction? Okay. Because closing process is undoubtedly an essential part of real estate transaction for all parties involved. It's good to understand each step in the process. right? Like choose the title company or attorney. Give the initial deposit to number two. I'll put that in the number so it's easy for you to, if you're taking notes, or you can always go back and watch the videos again. But if you're taking note, you can write that, like I'll give you the numbers. Like number one, choose the title company or attorney. Number two, give the initial deposit to the escrow agent to be retained in the title company in the escrow account. Okay, that you are the buyer, you are securing this deal, and you will be buying this property. Research homeowners insurance and find the best price terms for the coverage you need. The mortgage company will require proof of insurance before closing. Check with the title company to make sure they are issuing title insurance or the clear title. Meet the conditions of the mortgage. Okay, the mortgage company will give the buyer a list of items that must be completed before they provide the clear to close. Okay, prepare to move. Don't forget moving day is coming up. Hire movers. Stack up packing early. Start packing early. Review the closing disclosures. The title company sent the disclosures before closing and outlines all the closing cost associated with the home purchase. The final amount due from the buyer must be wired to the title company before closing. Do your final walkthrough of the home. The real estate agent will arrange and accompany the buyer on a walkthrough of the house before closing. The walkthrough is to verify that all the repairs are done and the home is in the same condition as it was during the offer period. Okay, prepare the documents for closing. Photo identification, preferably a driver license, proof of wire transfer, title company's escrow agent, and your checkbook will be required for closing. Okay, make sure you have a photo identification with you, like driver license. You make sure you have proof of wire transfer to the title company's escrow agent. Okay, um, and your checkbook also will be required, guys, at the closing. So get the keys. Closing takes place at the title company's or attorney's office, uh, depend on your state, how it works. But if the buyer is obtaining a mortgage, there is a mountain of paperwork to sign, guys. At least an hour should be allowed for this process, okay? Because it is a long process, signing all that paperwork. After everything is signed and the title company has received the mortgage company's funds from mortgage company, clear to close, they will give the buyer the key and the home is officially transferred to the buyer. And congratulations. So another point, number 11, like if you're taking a notes, don't forget if this home purchase is a primary residence um, or a homestead exception can be claimed on the property taxes in most states. In some states, it's necessary to apply and some are automatic. This is a significant benefit of homeownership. In a Google search, type homestead exemption and your state, and you should be directed to the information you need to apply. Okay. Um, Another point I want to make is let's see what else after that. I covered the homestead. Oh yeah. So remember Number 12, you can write that. Remember that the new mortgage payment is due each month. On the first of the month, it will take a few months for the mortgage company to send out monthly coupon. It's good idea to set up an automated bank withdrawal each month for the mortgage payment. The worst thing that can happen after closing is missing a mortgage payment. Okay. So hope all this help, all these points, you are taking up points. And also if you're not, you can always go back and, you know, listen to this again. Another point I want to make is what is required for real estate transaction, because many states and federal guidelines must be adhered to during the real estate process. Both the seller and the buyer real estate agent must follow many procedures. Okay. um, Set up the government to protect buyer and sellers. There are many steps to remember and complete. So in response, many brokers and agents use an itemized checklist with multiple tasks and dates due to remind them to keep the transaction in compliance. So in most states, agents have fiduciary duty to their clients, either the buyer or the seller, along with the loyalty of full disclosure, obedience, due diligence, and accounting. The agent is also responsible for their client's confidentiality. Um, and then in state where the agents are transaction brokers, they owe all the duties except confidentially and work for either the buyer or the seller or both in the same transaction. Okay. So real estate brokers are responsible for their agents and their behavior during the transaction. Real estate compliance exists at local, state, and federal level and help protect buyer and sellers by holding brokers accountable to their fiduciary duties. Okay. Um, how I know that it is complicated, to work in the real estate transaction, but how can a real estate transaction that we can simplify it? Okay, because the entire real estate transaction process is, I know it is overwhelming and is frustrating for all parties involved. Okay, sometimes there are many rules, regulations, and several deadlines and countless tasks to be accomplished. Many real estate agent professionals like to use real estate transaction software, right? They create a checklist, they task the list and to do. They can simplify the process and keep all their deadlines on track. Okay. They can offer also, these checklists can offer the ability to prepare individual checklists that suit the transaction and can be updated with deadlines and critical information that the agent must not forget. Okay. So make sure that checklist is integrated into your calendar systems and email notifications, because the broker of the company has access to all the information to confirm that his agents are staying on track and that critical um, tasks are being completed promptly. Okay, so this way the broker can make sure that he stays compliant with the state and federal guidelines and protect his clients and the buyers and sellers, right? So real estate agents, they can also, um, see the workflow, how it will help them simplify that complex process by using software or software pipelines or paperless pipelines to so they no deal will ever get out of the hand and no deadlines will be forgotten in any transaction, and you have a peace of mind, right? Just a click away.